Take a look at this. It's an international airport with a massive 10,000-foot runway, a huge terminal, and all the infrastructure to handle millions of passengers. So, why is it so eerie quiet? And get this, just a few miles down the road, another airport is absolutely thriving, one of the busiest in all of India. So, what gives? How does an airport, a major airport, one of the sixth busiest in the entire country, just vanishes for regular travelers? Well, it's a wild story about how a city's own success built a cage of skyscrapers around its airport, making flights too dangerous and forcing a ridiculously expansive move. This is why India had to abandon a $1 billion airport. For decades, Begumpet Airport wasn't just a strip of asphalt, it was the absolute heart of Hyderabad. Built back in 1930s by the last ruler of Hyderabad, it was a truly groundbreaking piece of infrastructure. From hosting the Nizam's personal airline to serving as a key base for the Royal Air Force in World War II, Begumpet was always in the middle of action. As India grew after independence, Hyderabad boomed, and Begumpet Airport was right there, growing along with it. A new terminal was built in 70s, and by the 90s it was connecting Hyderabad to the world. Then, when the new millennium rolled out, the city exploded into the global stage as a hub for IT and pharmaceuticals, earning the nickname Cyberabad. The city's population and economy were on a rocket ship, and so was the demand for air travel. Passenger numbers were skyrocketing, and the once spacious terminal felt tight and outdated. At its peak, the airport was the sixth busiest in India, with 10 domestic and 13 international airlines flying in and out. The problem was crystal clear. Hyderabad's ambition was simply outgrowing its airport. The plan was to expand and modernize Begumpet, but there was much bigger problem on the horizon, one that all the money in the world couldn't fix. And that problem wasn't inside the airport, it was all around it. The very success that was driving the need for a bigger airport was also ironically suffocating it. Hyderabad's IT and real estate boom wasn't just bringing in more passengers, it was causing the city itself to explode outwards and upwards. The area around the airport, which used to be the quiet outskirts of town, was now the city's bustling modern center. High rises apartments and new neighborhoods started popping up all around Begumpet. This rapid urban growth created what pilots and city planners call invisible walls. See, airports don't just need a clear runway. They need these huge protected corridors of airspace called approach funnels for planes to safely take off and land. As skyscrapers crept closer and closer to these flight paths, they built a virtual cage around the airport. The invisible walls were closing in, making every flight just a little bit riskier. There was simply no more room to grow. They couldn't make the runway longer because the city was literally at its doorstep. The safety margins, which are completely non negotiable in aviation, were shrinking fast. It's a classic case of a city literally outgrowing its own infrastructure. In fact, study shows airports across India, like in Mumbai, face huge risk from being boxed in, with Mumbai's airport now considered the most enclosed in the world. Begumpet was a textbook example. So the authorities were stuck. The city's economic engine needed a world class airport, but that same engine had built a concrete and steel cage that made operating one's safety next to impossible. They had hit a dead end. A bigger terminal meant nothing if planes couldn't safely get in and get out. The plan to expand Begumpet was dead. They needed a new, much more drastic solution. The decision was as drastic as it was expensive. They had to start over. In the early 2000s, officials did the only thing they could do. They looked for a new spot, settling on a site in Shamshabad, about 25 to 30 kilometers south of the city. It was far from the urban chaos, offering a clean slate with plenty of room for multiple runways and, most importantly, clear airspace for decades to come. Building this new airport, named Rajiv Gandhi International Airport, was a massive project. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The deal to build it came with a legally binding clause. The clause stated that no other airport within 150 kilometers radius could operate commercial flights. And just like that, the death warrant for Begumpet was signed. The decision was met with fierce opposition. Airport employees protested, worried about thousands of lost jobs. Budget airlines fought back, saying, hey, why not have a two airport system like London or New York? Keep Begumpet open for shorter flights. It seemed crazy to close a perfectly good, profitable airport and force everyone to travel so much farther out of the city. Lawsuits were filed, but the agreement was airtight. The new airport had to be financially successful, and that meant it needed all of Hyderabad's business. Construction started in 2005. 3 years later, the end came for Begumpet. On the night of March 22 to 2008, the airport was buzzing, but with a strange, somber energy. Just after midnight on March 23rd, a Thai Airways flight to Bangkok became the final commercial passenger flight to ever depart from Begumpet. A few hours later, the brand new Rajiv Gandhi International Airport opened its door and the airport code HYD officially moved. Overnight, Begumpet Airport fell silent. The terminals that once pulsed with thousands of people a day became vast, empty halls. The runways, once among the busiest in the nation, were still. A massive, valuable piece of infrastructure was, for all commercial intents and purposes, abandoned. So, what's left of Begumpet today? Well, it's not a total ghost town. It's been repurposed. The Indian Air Force uses it for training. It hosts VIP flights for politicians and executives in private jets. And every 2 years, it's home to a big air show called Wings India. But it's a shadow of its former self. Its life as a gateway to the world is over. And even with way less traffic, safety is still a concern. Just recently, authorities had to warn nearby residents that their buildings were getting too tall, proof that the tension between the airport and the city never really went away. Some locals have even suggested moving the remaining operations to finally free up the land and end the risk for good. The story of Begumpet is a wild lesson in the challenges of city planning. It's a tale of how incredible success can actually lead to failure, how a city's growth can cripple its most important assets. Hyderabad had to grow to become the powerhouse it is today, but that growth built an invisible prison in the sky. The lesson here is clear. When we build the cities of the future, we have to look up, not just down. Because if we don't, we risk building cages around our own ambitions, leaving behind quite expensive monuments to our own short sightedness. But I want to know what you think. Was closing a perfectly good airport the right call? Or should they have found a way to make a two airport system work? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found the story fascinating, do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. We have got more stories just like this one coming your way. Thanks for watching.